Hello, and welcome to the Radiant Mission podcast. My name is Rebecca Twomey, and I'm here with my amazing co-host and sister, Rachel Smith.
Hi.
We are on a mission to encourage and inspire others as they navigate through this life and with their relationship with Christ. Today, we are going to be talking about a super fun topic, and that is motherhood. Finding purpose as a stay-at-home mom. You know, despite what the world wants you to believe, being a stay-at-home mom is a full-time job. You're going to put in more than 40 hours a week. You're going to put in like whatever the amount of hours are in a week, in every day. That's how much time you're going to put in is 100% of the hours of every day.
Yes.
You know, it's hard work, especially when your focus is to also cultivate a lifestyle that's going to glorify Yahweh.
Yeah.
You know, so we're speaking from our own perspectives here. Rachel is a full-time stay-at-home mom. And so she has a very interesting perspective on motherhood. And we're going to talk about some of that. I am a working stay-at-home mom. So I work full-time and stay at home. So my challenges are a little bit different in different ways. And I know we've had some folks, we actually polled some folks on Instagram, and they were curious about some questions that I think are better suited for Rachel to answer. And then next week, we're going to talk about being a working mom and really how to manage life as a working mom and finding balance. So today we're going to focus on the stay-at-home mom stuff. But if you're a working mom too, I think that this could apply because maybe you're interested in becoming a stay-at-home mom.
Yes. Yeah.
We should try not to scare them off.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you'll definitely have a lot more perspective for next week's topic of being a working mom, because I was only a working mom for like the first year or so.
Yeah.
But I never like, it was always like me taking care of my kids and then adding work onto it.
Mm-hmm.
Full time, kind of like what you do now, except I didn't take on nearly as much as you do, but we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, right. And I think a good place for us to start is really with this idea of finding purpose, because I know that a lot of moms, when they make the decision to be a full-time stay-at-home mom, they might feel like they're losing a part of their identity.
Yeah.
You know, especially if they were a career woman who really worked her way up the ranks or really loved what she did as her job, but she decided or made the decision to stay at home because she knew it was what was best for her family and her kids.
Yeah.
And today, a lot of that might even be, there's a lot of reasons. Some of it might be financial. It doesn't make sense for two people to work if there has to be daycares involved and paying for that. Or it might be because of culture. You know, we live in a very worldly world. And I know a lot of moms are choosing to stay at home because they want to homeschool and really keep their kids out of, you know, public school or whatever it might be. There's a lot of reasons. So I'd love for you, because you worked for many years. Now, I know when you worked in property management that was not your life's calling. So that probably wasn't too hard to leave.
No.
But you also were a makeup artist for many years. And I know that you enjoyed your work and you enjoyed working with brides. But once you became a mom, you know, you would have had to give up your time on the weekends with your child in order to go spend 12 hours, you know, out of the house. And maybe I'm exaggerating, but those are long days.
Yeah. Yeah. So like you said, my background, well, I actually have 2 bachelor's degrees that I went to college for, in psychology and family and child science, which I only bring that up because it's pretty funny that, especially the family and child science major, I didn't plan to major in that. I was actually originally majoring in physics. That's a story for another day on why I was interested in that. But it was way too difficult for me. So then I
You know,
changed my
it's pretty ironic. Oh, I can't wait for us to talk about that one day because I never really thought about the irony in this.
right.
That you used to love space and now like
Yes.
our conversations on space are so
Yeah.
radically different.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of NASA anymore, is all we have to say on that for
Yeah,
the
right.
time being. So then, yeah, it was just not, I realized like freshman year, like, no, this is not what I want to do in my life. So then I changed my major to dietetics because I've always had an interest in nutrition, which actually is kind of funny now because I still do, but it's never been my career. And then as I was doing dietetics, this is what was so funny is I would do my own research and then I would go to my like dietetics classes, like where we're learning the food pyramid that the USDA puts out every year.
Mhm.
And I would be like, this is complete BS. Like it wasn't aligning with
Yeah.
my own research. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. This is like, you're just propagating government information. So then at that point, I was almost a junior. And so I had to find something that I had enough credits that my dietetics major had already covered. And that was in the humanities. And a major I'd never heard of before had met all of the same credits. And that was family and child science. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, what is that? And looking at like the course schedule for it, it was very much similar to psychology, but from the family unit perspective, not just the individual.
Yeah.
So then I decided to pick up psychology as a second major, which was very easy because a lot of the classes overlapped. So I only kind of bring this up because I used to joke in some of my classes that we were literally majoring in parenting.
Mm.
So we literally had a class and called parenting where we learned about the different parenting models and like just what research shows on them, like whether it's authoritative, authoritarian, I forget the other one right now.
Gentle parenting.
Yeah, actually gentle parenting would be under the umbrella of authoritative, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't sound like it should be, it doesn't mean what it sounds like it means, right?
Right. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. It wasn't it,
Authoritative is not authoritarian.
right. Authoritarian is more like kind of a strict like punishment type of parenting.
Yeah.
Authoritative is more of like a teaching through your own behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
redirecting type of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So anyways, I just bring all that up because that was what I went to college for. And then as I
Parenting.
got to my senior year and I met with my guidance counselor, is like, you can't do anything with either of these majors without your master's. But I like powered my way through college, went every summer, would take like 18 credits a semester. So I finished in like 3 years. And so by the time I got to senior year, I'm like, I am way too burnt out to go get my master's right now. And and that's when I had met my husband and we were going to move to Orlando together. And I had in college, my senior year especially, was working in property management, like you mentioned. And so I was able to get a job doing that when we moved and then got married in Orlando. But late in college, I just in my own free time discovered my passion, which was makeup. And it's kind of funny how big YouTube is today because when I was in college, which just makes me feel so old, but YouTube was like barely a thing, especially with makeup. There were barely any makeup YouTubers then.
Yeah.
There was a
Yeah.
handful of them. And I used to watch their YouTube videos and I would practice the stuff on myself and do it on my friends. And I just enjoyed it so much. And so I went and took a workshop on what like how to become a makeup artist and how to get into the industry. And as I learned from that workshop, there's different parts of the industry, like the film industry, fashion industry, bridal industry, and they talked about all of them. And I just fell in love with the idea of working on weddings and working on brides because that's truly like beauty makeup.
Yeah.
Whereas working in
Yeah.
film, it's really not beauty makeup
Yeah.
usually. So that's what I set out after graduating college, working a full-time job and starting to pursue my passion. And I
Now,
ended
I
up,
should mention that you also sucked me into this too.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I had always
eventually.
been interested and loved makeup stuff. I got roped into Mary Kay when I was 18 years old, but I didn't stay in for long. And I remember Rachel being like, "Listen, you got to try this. You would love it." And
Yeah, I brought you on a wedding with me.
yeah, I've got jobs in
Yeah.
Orlando and you can do jobs in South Florida and we can get together. And yeah, so I did a wedding with you and you taught me a lot of stuff. And then I went and got I took a airbrush makeup class and got my certification for airbrush. And then I did it, but I did it more on the side. I never did it as my full-time career. I always worked a full-time job and then also did that. But it was cool that Rachel and I got to do makeup together for a number of years. And
Yeah.
that's actually where Radiant originally came from.
Yeah, that's true. Now that we're
Our
talking about that.
name was Radiant Makeup Artistry.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
name just kind of has stuck with us all these years because it just really always has resonated with us. And the verse that we, use for this podcast and things like that. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, go back to what you were saying.
Yeah. It kind of like has come full circle in our life in a way because, you know, as I just said, getting into makeup, my career was about 5 years as a full-time makeup artist. I think maybe a little longer. This feels
I
like
think
so
it was
long
long.
ago.
I think it was longer than
Yeah,
that, but
this
maybe
all
it
feels
feels like
so
it.
long ago. It feels like a lifetime ago, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I'm just so far outside of that industry now. But the reason I kind of wanted to get into how I started as a makeup artist is because it truly was my passion. And once I
Yeah.
discovered it that I could do this for work, it was like this is what I wanted to do. And I remember as a kid, our dad saying to me, if you find something that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And he says today, I never would say that to you, but he definitely did because it impacted me so much because it was very hard for me to keep a job until I discovered makeup because I really took to heart like if I'm not loving this, I don't want to do it. It's just wasting my life. And when I started working in weddings doing makeup, I really loved it. And it wasn't just it was definitely the artistry part of it. I think my brain leans creative. Like I
Yeah.
have feeling like I'm creating something helps bring me fulfillment. But also just my background in college and psychology really helped me a lot working in weddings because weddings are not easy to work in. They're pretty high stress. And anyone who's gotten married and planned a wedding knows. So, working with brides and that being your main client, like it can be very stressful and you can have someone in your chair that's freaking out.
Yeah.
And
It's a lot of pressure too.
yes, yeah.
And a
And
lot
I
of
just
moms.
yeah, it was what's funny is people would ask me if I like had ever had bridezillas before.
Mhm.
And I was like, not really. It would usually be like their moms.
Yeah, I agree with that on the
Yeah.
weddings, because I moved on to do weddings. You moved to California, and then I
Yeah.
moved to New York City, and definitely it wasn't the
Yeah.
brides, it was always the moms that were be and I understand it though, because it's like your daughter's
Yes.
getting married,
Yes.
and you're probably the one that's spending the boatload of money on that wedding.
Yeah.
And you're just like stressed to the max, and you don't want to be
Yes.
sitting still to have your makeup done. You want to be doing
Yeah.
whatever, like not there. But I think that that is one of your biggest strengths and why you were so good at it is because you're really good at making people feel at ease and you're really good at talking to people. And I saw it when we worked together, the way that you would just like talk people down, like down
Yes.
off of their ledge
Yeah,
if they were stressed out.
That's actually what I ended up growing to enjoy the most about it, is the connections that I would make with the person in my chair, and that they could leave my chair feeling better
Then
about
when they sat
themselves,
down.
not
Yeah.
really because of the makeup, but because we connected. I was able to just be a calming presence and to really become their friend, whether it was a bride or a bridesmaid or a mom. I
Yeah.
actually love talking with moms.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
like gotten along really well with women who are older than me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just all this to say that it was truly my passion, but I have always wanted to be a mom, and I specifically have always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and that's something that Chris and I talked about when we got married, is we would have kids and I would stay home with them.
Yeah.
And
It
I
was the plan. It wasn't
right.
like, I think a lot of people have different scenarios. Sometimes it comes up and it's like, are we going to go this direction? Our mom was a stay-at-home mom, just to
Yeah.
give some
Yes.
background context to this. She was always home with us our whole
Yeah.
entire lives. Not with our oldest brother. We have a brother who our parents had when they were very young, and then they didn't have kids for 10 years. And then they had the rest of us all close together. She was working in the beginning with our oldest brother. And then when they had more kids, it was like, it just made more sense for her to be home. She did always work side jobs too, because she's a
Yeah.
busy person and she's an achiever, I
Yeah.
would say. And she also homeschooled us. So I think we grew up with the example of a very capable stay-at-home mom who gets it all done.
Yes, yeah, and I think that definitely, just that model of what I was raised by, I'm sure influenced me.
Yeah, it helps
But I
shaped
do
you and also give you the idea of what that's like.
yes, yeah. But I did want, like, my first point about being a stay-at-home mom to be is, like you just mentioned, based on this what I described my situation, is we planned for it.
Mhm.
That I think sometimes there's a misconception these days, especially where I first had kids, which was in Southern California, that you have to be well off to be able
Mm.
to stay home with your kids. To be a one income household is near impossible with how the economy is these days and the price of housing. And let me tell you, I get that, especially buying our first home in Southern California, and for us to choose to live on one income, it wasn't because we could afford it. It wasn't because my husband
You're
made such great money. It was
Yeah,
because we planned
and made the
to
choice.
make sacrifices to
There you go.
live that way.
Mhm.
We lived a very different lifestyle, we always have, than people with two incomes.
Mhm.
So,
That's a great point. I have seen this a lot on social media, that people will say that being a stay-at-home mom is a privilege.
yes,
And I couldn't disagree more with that,
right.
because it is a choice that people
Yes.
make. Now, maybe some people it's not, but for the majority of people that we know in our circles, you're absolutely right. It's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
You are sacrificing a second income in a society that isn't built for that. A lot of people think that, we just like, this just happened randomly, that women
Mhm.
have to work, but it was intentional.
Mhm.
It's by design of our government. They want two tax paying people from every household
Yes.
to be paying, giving them money.
Right.
I'm not going to get into the background of feminism right now,
I
but
know. That's a whole
but if you're
different podcast.
interested, go research that, because that's going to tell you the roots and the history of why we are where we are today with this whole having to, in a lot of, we feel like we have to have two incomes anyway if we want to live a certain lifestyle, but
Absolutely.
you don't have to. You can choose to not live the Instagram glamour life
Yeah.
in order to be a stay-at-home mom. in order to do what you know is right for your family. And that's what I think is really awesome about it is you don't have to be well off to be a stay-at-home mom. You just have to be resourceful.
Yes. Yes. You have to be resourceful. And it also is the job of a stay-at-home mom is very valuable. Like, yes, we
Yeah.
may be living on bringing in one income at this point in time, but all of the jobs that I do that we would have to be paying for if I was a full-time working mom, I've seen people do the math and it like adds up to like $60,000 or $70,000
Are
a
you
year or
talking
something.
about the ones where they're like a chauffeur is this amount of
Yeah.
money and this
Yeah.
is this amount of money? It is. I mean,
Yeah.
if you were to pay people to do all of those things, and that's why sometimes it doesn't make sense for people to work because you could
Right.
work, but then if you want to hire a nanny to watch your kids so you can work, and then, you hire out for certain things, you could end up spending the amount of money that you're making working, and it just
Right.
doesn't financially make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do
Yes.
want to direct us to, I say direct, that's how this Bible verse starts. I want to throw out a Bible verse that I think really points to the decision that you've made. And that comes from Proverbs 22:6. Direct your children onto the right path. When they are older, they will not leave it. I think that you chose this lifestyle and you chose to make this sacrifice. This is your, glorification to the Lord. This is your testimony. Like this is your sanctification in a way. I don't know if that's the right word, but like this is your way of directing your children on the right path, making the choice to do that. Because I don't know, I'm going to just throw this out there. You wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but you did not have plans to homeschool your kids.
No.
I love how you laugh.
I
Even
know.
though we were homeschooled,
No, I hated
Rachel
it.
really was not about the homeschool life.
Yes. Yeah. I always said I would never homeschool my kids. And then 2020 happened. And I'm like, I'm not sending my kids to the government.
So
So,
it's that same, like, you just know and understand that the best life and the best path that you can give your kids, and especially one that glorifies the Lord, is one where you are the one that is teaching them and raising them and teaching them
yeah.
values and parenting them. Because to go back to your whole background with parenting, I don't think that we often think about this, but if you're not your child's full-time caretaker, who's parenting them?
Yeah.
Someone else. And
Yeah.
maybe it's good parenting or maybe it's poor parenting. You don't really know because like
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah. I would say
hey.
this is kind of like a little aside, but one thing that really opened my eyes in my senior year in my major for family and child science, I had to do an internship at a school and I asked to be placed in the highest grade possible. Like if I was ever going to teach, because I could have been a teacher, it wanted to be high school, like definitely not little kids. And they put me in a first grade classroom. And I was like, oh, so the youngest kids possible. So all these kids were 6 and 7, which is funny because I'm currently homeschooling a first grader. And these little precious children were so sweet. And I actually ended up really enjoying my time in it. Although most of the time I was in the closet cutting construction paper for the craft time. It also really like, I learned a lot about all the prep that teachers have to go through because they don't have anyone else doing it there if they don't get an intern or a parent.
Yeah.
But the teacher of this class, she kind of scared me a lot. And she would scream at these kids. Like she would have me grading their little worksheets and she'd be like, Miss Rachel, did anyone miss their name on their worksheet? And I didn't realize I was going to admit this, but I kind of started lying for these kids.
Oh no.
Because if anyone didn't write their name, she would scream at them in front of the whole class,
Oh
little
man.
6-year-olds.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it really disturbed me. I was like, I didn't know that kids are getting yelled at school. Like, I'd never been to elementary school because I was homeschooled.
Yeah.
Like, of course, moms yell at their kids, but like, we love our kids in a different way than a teacher's going to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I even talked to my professor about it because I was like, this doesn't seem like the way it should be. Like, I'm really scared of this lady, and so are all these kids.
What did they advise you? Anything?
I I don't know. I don't know if they looked into it. I don't know what happened, but I know when my semester was over, all of the kids like saying goodbye to me were crying because I would try to be really nice to them because I felt so bad for them. But I I don't, I don't know what the deal was with this teacher, and maybe this is not common, but all I know is, like I just said, if anyone's gonna yell at my kids, it's gonna be me. It's not gonna be some, you know, like, they start out as a stranger, and yes, children spend like 7 hours a day with them when they're going to
Yeah.
school,
Yeah.
but a teacher is never going to love a child like their mother is going to.
Hmm.
I mean, for the most part, like, there could be
Yeah.
exceptions
I
to
think
broken
that
families, but
you and I are to, you know, we have to admit, you and I are a little bit ignorant to what it's like to go to school because we are homeschooled. So we only know what our very, our experiences were. Like I was a student teacher for a little bit
yeah.
and had brief experiences, but I didn't go through it. But I have heard from my husband, he can corroborate what you're saying. He's had great teachers, but he has had yelly teachers too. And he's
Yeah.
told me about those teachers. Now, I don't know what it's like today. It's a different environment. I mean, they're like recording classrooms today, so I
Yeah.
don't know if people
Yeah,
feel
I
like
don't know if people
if they're
could get away
better
from.
controlled or whatever the case might be. And just imagine what that's like. You have one 7-year-old and imagine what it would be like if you had
Oh my gosh.
27-year-olds.
Yeah, I honestly could not do it. I could not. So,
So we
yeah.
can't judge necessarily, but I think the
No.
point that you're trying to make here is you recognized from this experience that your children would be in the care of someone else and you would rather them be in your care
Yes.
under your yelling.
Yeah. I mean, yes, yeah, because so to so to kind of go back to a little bit to how I transitioned from working to, even though I did always want to be a stay-at-home mom and I did always want to be the one home with my kids and hadn't necessarily planned for the homeschool part initially.
Mhm.
But when I had my first son, I was absolutely planning to still do my career, especially as a makeup artist who works in weddings. My jobs were mainly Saturdays and Sundays. That's when most people get married. I would book trials and things like that during the week, but it would be pretty easy for me to navigate my schedule. And so I felt like I could do both. And so for the first year and a half of his life, I did do both.
Mhm.
And having him is when really just my whole perspective started to change. Like, I loved my career. It was really my passion. But once I was holding this little baby and this is what I always wanted,
Yeah.
I realized now is the time for me to focus on this very fleeting time with my little baby.
Mhm.
And I did try to make it work for a while, but like you briefly mentioned a little bit ago, working on the weekends, it felt like I was missing all my family time. So my
Yeah.
husband would work all week. I would stay home with him. And then on the weekends, I would go work weddings literally the whole day. And it's
Yeah.
very
You're
physically
leaving at
exhausting.
like 5, 6 in the morning when you're going to a
Yes.
wedding and you're
Yeah.
there until
And I would,
afternoon.
and because I was a breastfeeding mom, I would literally have to go pump in the bathroom
Oh my
at my
gosh.
weddings. Yeah. And I had a really hard time letting my career go though, because the thought
Yeah.
of just saying like, I'm just a stay-at-home mom was hard for me,
Mm.
especially in the culture of Southern California. I was literally one of the only moms I knew who stayed home.
Mhm.
And so, very often, anytime I would be anywhere social, people are always would ask, like, so what do you do for work? So it's a hard thing to give up what is essentially your identity, it
Mm.
feels like. Because I
Mhm.
think a lot
Mhm.
of us not so rightly put our identity in our careers.
Yeah.
And I fell into that category that I identified as a makeup artist. That was my career. That was who I was.
Mhm.
And that was something that the Lord really worked on my heart and humbled me, that actually my identity was in Christ.
Mhm.
And my identity isn't even in motherhood, even though it
Mm.
can kind of look like that sometimes because it's what my life is surrounded by.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. So once I once I got pregnant with my second and I was so sick, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was going into weddings, like throwing up in the car on the way. And I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. These, being in people's face when I feel like I'm about to throw up. And so I did a few weddings when I was pregnant with him. And then I finally went to my husband, and I was barely making much money at that point because I was only taking on a few because I was just so busy with now a toddler and being
Mhm.
pregnant. And so I finally went to my husband. I said, I think I'm ready to give up my career and to truly stay home with my kids and this be it.
Mhm.
I just remember like that admitting that felt really hard for me to be
Sure.
like, instead of I am a makeup artist, I used to be a makeup artist.
Mhm.
And that transition was pretty hard for me, but it also just felt like this is the time for my kids
Mhm.
because they are only going to be little once.
Mhm.
And I'm never going to get this time back. And I can always go back to my career one day
Yeah.
if that is still right for me in my life.
Sure.
And I do not have a single regret about it. I will say, and this is kind of what I wanted to bring a little insight to this topic, is I have absolutely struggled with identity since giving up my career. Of there's times in the trenches with babies and toddlers when you don't have anything else, hobby wise or career wise to fulfill you, that you're just a, changing diapers and making food, and that's all you do
Mhm.
all day long, and
Mhm.
play with children. And it, in those times, it can feel like your mind isn't being, like, used very much. But and that can get hard, it
Mhm.
day in and day out. But what I just wanted to say that I've learned over years of going through that and just gaining more perspective on it is doing those things is a form of worship. That everything that we do for anyone, we can do unto the Lord.
Mhm.
That it can become a form of worship depending on our heart posture. And I won't say that my heart posture was always perfect, but that opportunity to serve my children in many ways has been my ministry to serve the Lord.
Mhm.
Like you brought up the verse, what was it? Proverbs
22:6.
22:6. Yeah, Proverbs 22:6 about, I think some versions will read, train up your child in the way they should
Yes.
go.
Yes.
And one insight that I've heard someone say about that verse before, which it kind of gives it like another layer of meaning, which I really like, is the Hebrew word that's used for train up can also be translated to dedicate.
Hmm.
So it could be read like, dedicate your child unto the way that they should go.
Mhm.
And when they're older, they won't depart from it. And thinking of it in that way, it's the dedicate is like a action word, like speaking over your children,
Mhm.
and that we can speak life over our children, that we can speak into them, like, you will be great, you are brave, you are strong. Speaking that over our children as they get older,
Mhm.
that will stay in them, that I am brave, I am strong, I am capable, I can do this.
Mhm.
So I've heard someone kind of teach before that, like, another layer to that verse that I really like. But
I'd like to tag along with that because what you're saying is what you speak into the life of your child is what they believe.
yes,
And I think a
exactly.
lot of people maybe in our generation have a lot of damage or trauma from things that people have said to us, be it parents or other people. You and I both grow up in this crazy diet culture world.
Right.
And a lot of that was very damaging to us. And as you and I are learning about birth and about how what we learn and what we hear programs us, I think this is
Yes.
something important to point out to young mothers of young children, any age children, but if they're young, start when they're young, that how you speak to your children, what you say to them is ultimately going to shape who they are. And when you think about
Yes.
it from that perspective, you realize how powerful and how important it is to speak lovingly and positively to these little tiny minds that are just developing.
Absolutely.
On my little 3-year-old, you repeat the same thing to her 15 times, she's going to be repeating it back, you know.
Yes.
And right now, the thing I'm repeating to her is, you're going to sleep all night in your own bed.
Yeah. That reminds me of another verse from Proverbs 18:21. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruits. That we have, and this goes for anyone, but especially our children, because their minds are little sponges and they're still forming, that we have the power in our tongue to speak life or death over our children.
Absolutely.
And this is just, it feels like an immense responsibility as a parent in general. All parents can relate to this,
Yeah.
that we are responsible for them in this way. And that's what is so impactful for me as a stay-at-home mom, is this is what I'm dedicating my life to, that being the one that is speaking life over them every day. And I'm not going to sit here like I'm a perfect mother and I don't use my tongue, in a painful way sometimes.
Yeah.
I
Nobody's perfect.
actually really got laid into my older son just today, yelling at him because we're in a phase of the potty talk. If anyone has advice on how you can get your 7-year-old boy to stop with the potty talk, please email us. It's driving me nuts with the potty. I'm not even going to say all the words because I'm literally treating them like they're curse words in my house, because it just doesn't stop. And they just say it to be funny all the time. And I just can't take it anymore. And I'm constantly telling them, stop with the potty talk. We're not going to talk like that. I'm correcting them. And just snapped when he said one of the very annoying things. And I yelled at him. I'm like, stop. So what I'm trying to humble myself down to is that, yes, my goal is to speak life over my children and to direct them on the right path. but I'm not perfect. And sometimes I am that person that's using my tongue for a lashing.
Mm.
So,
Well, I think that they say the first step to recovery is admitting.
yeah.
Right?
Yes, I do. And that's another thing is I do, and this is the difference. I to kind of bring it back to us, just kind of talking about how other people may be yelling at our kids if we're not with them,
Yeah.
is I have tried as a parent who's far from perfect that when I do lose my temper to repair that relationship that I'm going to my child, and I'm not perfect at this either, saying, I'm sorry that mommy yelled. It wasn't right for me to yell.
Mhm.
I was struggling to control my emotions.
Mhm.
And so it's
You're
hard.
reminding me of you've done re-engage before, but Mike and I are doing
Yeah.
re-engage, which is this marriage class. And at the beginning of one of the chapters, it says the way to change. I wish I had it in front of me so I could use the direct quote because it's really good, but it's basically like the way to change your relationship is to take you and put you right here and then draw a circle around it and then change everyone inside the circle. So it's like, you can't change other people, you can't change your spouse, and you can't change that your kid is going to say things that are going to set you off, but you can change how you react. And sometimes when we change how we react, it changes the scenario. I'll give you an example. I was talking to you before we started recording about how my 3-year-old is very particular about what she wears. And if she doesn't wear what she wants to wear, it's like a meltdown. And there's this one Peppa Pig dress she really loves, and she always wants to wear it. But of course, after you wear it and you get food all over it because you're 3, it
Yeah.
needs to get washed. And the other day, she was like, I want to wear this Peppa dress. And she actually knew it was in the dirty laundry and went and got it out of the laundry room. And, it can get frustrating when she's crying or like throwing a little bit of a fit about it. But I had one of those positive moments in that moment where I realized that I could be like, no, that's dirty. Put something else on. And that's going to set the tone for the next, 10 minutes or whatever it is. Or I could redirect. And in that moment, I just said, you know what? We got a lot of ice cream and food and stuff on this yesterday. Can you help me go put it in the washer? And then once it was in the washer, you
Yeah.
got to pick something else. But
Yeah.
it was a reminder in that moment. And like you said, I'm not perfect and I also fail a lot in this, but it's teaching me in these little moments. If I just take a second, sometimes when we are about to react, actually, this is another thing for marriage classes. A lot of times when we want to have a conversation with somebody about something or in the moment we're about to lash out, instead of doing that, the recommendation is ask God to help you find the right words to say. And so
Yeah.
it's like in that moment where the crying about the clothes, instead of responding, like take a second, Lord, help me respond peacefully, help me
Yeah.
respond sweetly or gently. And
That
he'll give
that
us the right
advice would
words.
definitely help me with this potty talk. Because it's like to the point of like it triggers me.
Yeah. Yeah. I get
I
that.
can't hear it anymore.
I get that.
But
Maybe start to rhetorically ask him, what do you think that Jesus would think about
there you go.
this? Because he is very sensitive. And this is the great work that you've done directing and training up your children in the way that they should go. Your oldest is very spiritual and very aware and very much has a servant's heart and understands the Lord. And I feel like if he understood the value of honoring the Lord with your tongue, he would understand that. So
Yes. Yeah.
maybe have a one-to-one with him without the other one to eggs him on.
That is something that I try to bring to And this is what we get the opportunity when we're with the ones with our kids all day, every day, is there's these little moments of teaching
Yeah.
that you could never account for. You can't plan for them. He was asking me theological questions at the age of 2, which I never, anticipated or was prepared for. So I have the opportunity to have those moments, definitely when I'm like on my mental game too, that it's not just answering his questions, but being able to guide and parent my children in a not just a godly way, but a Christ honoring way. And to kind of start wrapping up this part of the conversation as we talk about, the different types of moms and being a stay-at-home mom. If I've learned one thing from being a stay-at-home mom, that is the honor of sacrifice. That sacrificing my career or my time or my pride or my identity is the least I can do for a God who sacrificed it all for me. And this is what I feel is my calling. And once I really realized that and embraced that, I no longer needed fulfillment in motherhood or my career, that my fulfillment is in the Lord. And everything that I do, whether it was working or taking care of my children, it can honor him as I sacrifice more of myself to give it away to others, because that is ultimately the purpose of all of our lives, is not to live for ourselves. It is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And second is to love your neighbor as yourself. So I find being a stay-at-home mom to be incredibly honoring. If anyone has it on their heart to do it, find a way to do it, and you will have no regrets. You will. I'm not going to say it's easy. It is not.
Yeah, that's not the message of today.
We're definitely trying. The message is the positive parts of it. I don't think going into not having this conversation on my worst day as a single mom might sound a little different.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I think that is the core of why we do what we do. So
well, I definitely support that. If you are listening and you're feeling this calling, definitely ask the Lord for guidance, ask him to guide you to that right decision, because, obviously only he can guide you to your decision at the end of the day. And there were a couple of verses I wanted to mention as we're wrapping up here. Really, they can work for if you're overwhelmed, but I think also in this scenario that we're talking about where we need to stop and pause for a moment, just a reminder from Psalm 17:6 is, I call on you, my God, for you will answer me. Turn your ear to me and hear my prayer. And it's about that desperation of, I'm asking you for guidance. I'm asking you for help. But then in another much further area, in 1 John 5, verses 14 and 15, this is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have what we have asked of him. Now, the very important part here is according to his will.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's just very important to pray over this if this is what you're considering, or if you're already a stay-at-home mom and you're feeling overwhelmed by being a stay-at-home mom, or if you're feeling like you're missing your identity, cry out to the Lord. Ask him to guide your steps and to change your perspective and to provide you with peace, or to provide you with some guidance on your next step, and you can't go wrong.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in and for being on this journey with us. If you'd like to follow along outside the podcast, you can join the mission on Instagram and Facebook at The Radiant Mission. And you can watch this video in YouTube format on YouTube. And today we're going to be closing with Matthew 11:28 through 30. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Wishing you a radiant week. See you next time.
Bye, guys.